Maya Ellis thought her biggest worry was making rent while caring for her sick grandmother. She had no idea that mopping floors in a marble lobby at midnight would reunite her with the boy who shattered her heart 15 years ago, now a feared Mafia boss who still carried her photo in his wallet. When threatening messages start appearing under her door and dangerous men begin asking about her schedule, Maya realizes that some debts from the past never die. But Marco Rossi made one fatal mistake when he threatened the woman Dante Valenti would burn the world to protect. What Maya doesn't know yet is that the scared teenager who abandoned her has become a man who eliminates threats permanently, and she's about to discover just how far he'll go to keep her safe. The question isn't whether love can survive 15 years of separation, but whether it can survive what Dante's about to do in its name. Subscribe and tell me where you're watching from, because this love story is about to get deadly. The mop bucket wheels squeaked against the marble floor as Maya Ellis pushed it across Valenti Tower's lobby. Nearly midnight. The building felt hollow and cold, like a giant glass tomb. She liked it this way. No suits rushing around, no phones ringing, just her and the quiet. A security light flickered overhead, casting weird shadows on the polished stone. Maya made a mental note to tell maintenance tomorrow. The place had to look perfect. That was the job. She dipped her mop and squeezed it out, water dripping back into the bucket. Her shoulders ached from the double shift at the diner earlier. But Ruth needed her medicine, and the rent wouldn't pay itself. Something caught her eye near the side entrance. A scratch on the metal around the lock. Fresh, the paint was still flaking off in tiny silver bits. Maya frowned and walked over for a closer look. Someone had tried to pry this door open. Recently. She pulled out her phone and took a picture, then typed a quick message to the day security supervisor. Side door lock damaged. Possible break-in attempt. Will log in report. Maya E. Her grandmother always said to pay attention to details. The devil's in the details, baby girl. Miss one, and trouble finds you. Maya shook her head and went back to mopping. She had 6 more floors to clean before morning, and the bus home wouldn't wait. 2 silhouettes moved past the floor to ceiling windows facing the street. Maya's hand tightened on the mop handle. They paused, looked in, then kept walking. She forced herself to breathe steady. This was downtown. People walked by all the time. Even at midnight, nothing strange about it. But her heart was beating faster now. The elevator chimed across the lobby. Maya looked up, expecting to see Jerry the security guard making his rounds. Instead, the polished steel doors opened, and a man in an expensive suit stepped out. Tall, dark hair, strong jaw. He moved like he owned the building, which, according to the employee handbook, he did. Dante Valenti, CEO and heir to the family empire. Maya had seen his picture in the lobby, but in person he was different, more solid, more real, and there was something about the way he carried himself that made the air feel heavier. She kept mopping, eyes on the floor. Rich bosses didn't notice cleaning ladies. That was how she liked it. Maya? Her name fell from his lips soft as a prayer. Maya's hand froze on the mop handle. She knew that voice. Deep, careful, like he was afraid of breaking something precious. Slowly, she looked up. Their eyes met across the marble expanse. Time stopped. She was 16 again, sitting under the oak tree at the county fair. He was 17, shy and sweet, offering her cotton candy with hands that shook just a little, before the family name meant anything, before the world got complicated. Dante. The word slipped out before she could stop it. He took a step forward, then another. His executives were still coming out of the elevator behind him, talking about quarterly reports and profit margins. But Dante wasn't listening anymore. "What are you doing here?" he asked. Maya straightened her spine. The spell broke. This wasn't the boy from the fair. This was Dante Valenti, the man whose family name was whispered in the city's darker corners. "My job," she said simply. The executives finally noticed their boss had stopped moving. They stood awkwardly by the elevator, stealing glances at Maya and whispering among themselves. "Gentlemen," Dante said without taking his eyes off Maya, "thank you for tonight. We'll continue tomorrow. But sir, the Singapore contracts. Tomorrow." His voice carried the kind of authority that didn't need volume. The men nodded and filed back into the elevator. Soon it was just Maya and Dante in the wide, empty lobby. "Maya Ellis," he said, like he was testing how her name felt in his mouth after all these years. "I can't believe you're here." "Yeah, well, life's funny that way." She gripped the mop tighter. Don't let me keep you. I'm sure you have important things to do. Let me drive you home." No, the word came out sharper than she meant, but she couldn't help it. The last thing she needed was to owe Dante Valenti anything. "It's late," he said, "and it's not safe. I've been taking care of myself just fine." Maya dunked the mop again and went back to cleaning. She could feel him watching her. It made her skin prickle in ways she didn't want to think about. "Maya, please, just let me." "No." She looked up at him, water dripping from the mop onto his expensive shoes. "I said no. I can take care of myself." For a moment, something flickered in his dark eyes. Hurt, maybe, or disappointment, but it was gone so fast she might have imagined it. "Of course," he said quietly. "I'm sorry." Maya went back to mopping. After a few minutes, she heard his footsteps walking away, then the ding of the elevator. She was alone again, but her hands were shaking now. Maya finished the lobby and rolled her bucket to the service elevator. 3 more hours until her shift ended. 3 more hours to forget the way Dante had said her name, the way he'd looked at her like she was something precious he'd lost and found again. The elevator climbed to the 10th floor. Maya pulled out her phone while she waited for it to stop. A text from Ruth. "Don't forget my pills, baby. Love you." Maya smiled despite everything. Her grandmother was the strongest person she knew. Even after the mini-stroke last month, Ruth refused to slow down. Still cooked dinner every night. Still tended her little herb garden on the fire escape. Still worried about everyone but herself. The pills cost $300 a month, more than Maya made in a week of cleaning. But Ruth was worth it. She was worth everything. The elevator doors opened. Maya pushed her bucket out and started down the hallway. The offices were dark, except for the green glow of computer screens in sleep mode. She cleaned methodically. Empty trash cans, vacuum carpets, dust desks. The same routine every night for 8 months now. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work, and it kept her mind busy. Usually, tonight was different. Tonight, the past had walked right up to her and said her name. Maya remembered the last time she'd seen Dante. Graduation day. They'd made plans to meet at the old oak tree after the ceremony. She'd waited for 2 hours in her best dress, the one her mother had bought special for the occasion. He never showed. The next week, she heard he was leaving for college, some fancy business school back east. No goodbye, no explanation, just gone. Maya learned later that his father had died that summer. Sudden heart attack. Dante had to come home and take over the family business, the legitimate side and the other side. The side that made people cross the street when they saw him coming. She understood why he'd left, but understanding didn't make it hurt less. Maya finished the 10th floor and moved to the 11th. Then the 12th. Her phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. "This is Dante. I wanted you to know that I've arranged for a car service to be available for all night shift employees. No strings attached, just safety. The desk will have details tomorrow." Maya stared at the screen, then deleted the message. She didn't need his charity. She'd been riding the bus for 29 years. She could handle a few more. But as she worked, a small voice in the back of her mind whispered that maybe, just maybe, he was trying to take care of her the only way he knew how. By 4 a.m., Maya was exhausted. Her feet hurt, her back ached, and she couldn't stop thinking about dark eyes and gentle hands and the boy who used to read her poetry under summer stars. She gathered her supplies and headed for the lobby. Time to clock out and catch the first bus home. The marble floor was still damp from her earlier mopping. It gleamed under the overhead lights, like a frozen lake. Maya had always been proud of her work. The building looked perfect when she was done with it. She pushed through the employee exit and stepped into the cool morning air. Dawn was still an hour away, but the sky was starting to lighten around the edges. The bus stop was 2 blocks away. Maya walked quickly, her cleaning supplies jingling in the bag over her shoulder. The streets were mostly empty. A few delivery trucks, some early commuters heading to coffee shops. At the corner, she stopped and looked back at Valenti Tower. All those windows, dark and silent. Somewhere up there, Dante was probably still working, making deals, running an empire. A black sedan was parked across the street from the bus stop. Maya noticed it because the engine was running, but no one got out. The windows were tinted too dark to see inside. A chill ran down her spine. She tried to tell herself it was nothing, just someone waiting for a friend, or maybe a taxi driver taking a break. But something about it felt wrong. The bus pulled up with a loud hiss of brakes. Maya climbed aboard, paid her fare, and found a seat near the back. As they pulled away from the curb, She looked out the window. The black sedan was following them. Maya's heart started racing. She wanted to tell herself she was being paranoid, but Ruth had always taught her to trust her instincts. 3 stops later, the sedan was still there. Maya got off at the next stop, even though it wasn't hers. She waited on the sidewalk, pretending to look at her phone. The sedan drove past without slowing down. Through the windshield, she caught a glimpse of the driver. Young guy, baseball cap, nothing special about him. Maya let out a shaky breath. Maybe she was just tired, seeing threats where there weren't any. It had been a long night. She caught the next bus home and tried to put the whole thing out of her mind. But the feeling of being watched stayed with her all the way back to her apartment. Ruth was already awake when Maya got home. She sat at the kitchen table in her pink bathrobe, sipping tea and working on a crossword puzzle. "Morning, baby girl," she said without looking up. "How was work?" "Same as always." Maya dropped her bag by the door and went to put the kettle on. "How are you feeling?" "Good, real good. Dr. Martinez says my blood pressure's getting better." Maya smiled. "That was worth all the extra shifts in the world. You hungry? I can make some eggs." "Just tea for me. You look tired." Maya caught her reflection in the window over the sink, dark circles under her eyes, worry lines around her mouth. When had she started looking so worn down? "I'm fine, Grandma. Just a long night." Ruth set down her pencil and gave Maya a look, the same look she'd been giving her since she was 5 years old, the one that said she could see right through any lie. "What's bothering you?" Maya considered telling her about Dante, about the strange car, about the scratched lock at the building, but Ruth worried enough already. The last thing she needed was more stress. "Nothing. I'm just tired." Ruth studied her for a moment longer, then nodded. "Well, get some rest. And don't forget we have that appointment with the social worker this afternoon." Maya's stomach dropped. She had forgotten. Miss Patterson from the county was coming to check on Ruth's living situation, to make sure she was getting proper care. If anything seemed off, they could force Ruth into assisted living, take her away from the only home she'd ever known. "I'll be ready," Maya promised. She made her grandmother's tea and toast, then headed to her bedroom. But sleep wouldn't come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Dante's face, heard his voice saying her name, and somewhere in the back of her mind, a little voice kept whispering that her quiet life was about to get very complicated. Maya woke up at noon to the sound of Ruth humming in the kitchen. For a moment, she forgot about everything. The tower, the car, the past, walking back into her life. Then she remembered, and the knot in her stomach tightened. She showered and put on her best jeans and a clean sweater. The social worker would be there in an hour, and everything had to be perfect. Ruth had already cleaned the apartment from top to bottom. The floors gleamed, the windows sparkled. Even the medicine bottles on the kitchen counter were arranged in neat rows. "You didn't have to do all this," Maya said. "I could have helped. Keeps me busy. Besides, I want that woman to see we're doing just fine on our own." Maya hugged her grandmother tight. Ruth smelled like lavender soap and vanilla extract. Like home. "We are doing fine," Maya said. "Better than fine." A knock at the door made them both jump. Miss Patterson was early. Maya opened the door to find a thin woman in a grey suit, holding a clipboard. She had kind eyes but a tired smile, like she'd seen too many sad stories. "Miss Ellis, I'm Janet Patterson from the county. Thank you for seeing me." "Of course. Please, come in." The next hour felt like the longest of Maya's life. Miss Patterson asked questions about Ruth's medication, her daily routine, her social activities. She checked the bathroom for safety rails, the kitchen for fresh food, the living room for hazards. Ruth answered every question with dignity. She showed off her herb garden, her photo albums, the thank you cards from neighbors she'd helped over the years. Maya held her breath through all of it. Finally, Miss Patterson put away her pen and smiled. "Everything looks wonderful here. Mrs. Ellis, you're clearly thriving with Maya's support. I'll recommend that you continue with the current arrangement." Maya nearly cried with relief. Ruth squeezed her hand under the table. "Thank you," Maya said. "We really appreciate you taking the time." Miss Patterson gathered her things and headed for the door. Just before she left, she turned back. "Maya, can I speak with you privately for a moment?" Maya's heart stopped, but she followed Miss Patterson into the hallway. "I know how hard this is," the social worker said quietly. "Caring for a grandparent, working multiple jobs. You're doing an incredible job, but don't forget to take care of yourself too." "I'm fine. I'm sure you are. But if you ever need resources, financial assistance, respite care, anything, please don't hesitate to call." Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. After Miss Patterson left, Maya leaned against the front door and let herself breathe. They were safe. For now. "We did good, baby girl," Ruth called from the kitchen. "Yeah, Grandma. We did." Maya was about to join her when she noticed something white on the floor by her feet. An envelope. Someone had slipped it under the door. Her name was written on the front in block letters. No return address, no stamp. With shaking hands, Maya tore it open. Inside was a photograph. Blurry, taken from a distance with a long lens. It showed her mopping the lobby of Valenti Tower. Below the photo, in the same block letters, were 5 words. "Some debts never die." Maya's knees went weak. She slumped against the wall, the envelope falling from her hands. Someone was watching her. Someone who knew where she lived, where she worked. Someone who thought she owed them something. But what? And why now? From the kitchen came the sound of Ruth washing dishes, humming an old gospel song. Normal, safe, everything. Maya was trying so hard to protect. With trembling fingers, Maya pulled out her phone. She scrolled through her contacts until she found the number she'd deleted earlier. But she remembered it. She typed slowly, "It's me. We need to talk." The response came immediately. "Where are you?" Maya looked at the photo in her hands. At her grandmother in the kitchen, at the life she'd built from nothing. "Home," she typed. "Come alone." Within minutes, her phone rang. "Maya," Dante's voice was sharp with worry. "What's wrong?" "Someone left me a message," she said quietly. "I think I'm in trouble." A pause. Then, "I'm on my way." The line went dead. Maya slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor. The envelope lay beside her like a promise of worse things to come. 15 years ago, she would have run to Dante Valenti without a second thought. He'd been her safe harbor in a world that didn't always make sense. Now he was a stranger in an expensive suit, a man whose family name carried weight she couldn't begin to understand. But he was also the only person who might be able to keep her grandmother safe. Maya closed her eyes and prayed she wasn't making the biggest mistake of her life. Maya had barely enough time to hide the envelope before a soft knock echoed through the apartment. Not the aggressive pounding she'd expected from someone in Dante's line of work. Just 3 gentle taps. "Maya," Ruth called from the kitchen. "Someone's at the door." "I've got it." "Grandma." Maya smoothed her hair and checked the peephole. Dante stood in the hallway, hands in his pockets. Behind him, a shorter man with silver hair waited quietly. Both wore simple, dark clothes, nothing flashy, nothing that screamed money or power. She opened the door. "Thank you for coming," Maya said. Dante's eyes searched her face. "Are you hurt?" "No, I'm okay. But..." She glanced toward the kitchen where Ruth was still humming. "We should probably talk quietly." "Of course," Dante gestured to the man behind him. "This is Nico Rinaldi. He handles security for my family. He can be trusted." Nico nodded respectfully. "Miss Ellis." Maya studied both men. In the harsh hallway light, she could see the worry lines around Dante's eyes, the way he held himself like he was ready for trouble. This wasn't just a social call. "Come in," she said finally. Ruth appeared in the living room doorway, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She looked from Maya to the 2 strangers with sharp, intelligent eyes. "Grandma, this is Dante Valenti and Mr. Rinaldi. We used to know each other, back in high school." Ruth's expression softened slightly. "Any friend of Maya's is welcome here. Can I get you some coffee? Sweet tea?" "That's very kind, Mrs. Ellis," Dante said. "But we don't want to impose." "Nonsense. Sit down, both of you." Maya watched her grandmother switch into hostess mode. Ruth had always been able to read people. She sized up Dante and Nico like she was deciding whether they were worth her good china. Apparently, they passed the test. "Maya, baby girl, why don't you show your friends to the living room? I'll bring some refreshments." Maya led them to the small sitting area. The furniture was old but comfortable. Crocheted doilies on the side tables, family photos covering every surface. It was the opposite of everything Dante's world probably looked like, but he sat down on the couch like he belonged there. Nico took a chair near the window where he could see the street. "You said someone left you a message," Dante said quietly. Maya pulled the envelope from where she'd hidden it behind a cushion. "I found this under my door about 20 minutes ago." Dante's face went stone cold when he saw the photo. Nico leaned forward to get a better look. "When was this taken?" Nico asked. "Last night, during my shift," Maya's voice was barely above a whisper. Someone was watching me work, taking pictures. Dante handed the photo to Nico, who studied it carefully. Professional equipment, long lens. This took planning. What does it mean? Maya asked. Some debts never die. I don't owe anybody anything. Ruth appeared with a tray of sweet tea and homemade cookies. She set it on the coffee table and gave Dante a long look. You're Antonio Valenti's boy, aren't you? Dante straightened. Yes, ma'am. Did you know my father? Knew of him. He helped my late husband find work at the docks when times were hard. Good man. Heard he passed a few years back. Thank you. He would have remembered your kindness. Ruth nodded and settled into her favorite chair. Now, what's this about debts and messages? Maya started to protest. Grandma, you don't need to worry about. Child, I've been worried about you since the day you were born. Don't stop now. Ruth fixed Dante with a steady gaze. Is my granddaughter in danger? Dante met her eyes without flinching. I believe so. But I won't let anything happen to her. That's a big promise from someone who just walked back into her life. Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. Grandma, it's okay, Dante said. She's right to question me. I disappeared once. I won't do it again. The room went quiet except for the tick of Ruth's old clock on the mantel. Maya could feel the weight of history in the air, all the years of silence, all the questions that had never been answered. A sound from the hallway broke the moment. Footsteps, slow and deliberate. Then a quiet knock. Maya's blood turned to ice. We're not expecting anyone. Nico was already moving. He crossed to the window and peered through the curtain. Small boy, maybe 7 or 8, alone. Maya relaxed slightly. That's Luis. He lives downstairs with his mother. She opened the door to find Luis Alvarez standing in the hallway. He was a quiet kid, too serious for his age. His mother worked nights at the hospital, so he spent a lot of time on his own. Hey, Luis, what's up? The boy held out a small object, Maya's apartment key. You dropped this, Miss Maya. On the stairs. Maya took the key, confused. When? This afternoon, when the lady in the grey suit was here. Luis glanced past her into the apartment. His eyes widened when he saw Dante and Nico. Thank you for bringing it back, Maya said. That was very thoughtful. Luis nodded but didn't leave. He shifted from foot to foot like he wanted to say something else. What is it, sweetheart? There was a man, Luis said finally. Earlier today. He was asking where you live. What apartment? Maya's chest tightened. What did he look like? Tall, brown hair. He had a picture of you. Luis looked scared now. I didn't tell him nothing. I just said I didn't know. Dante appeared beside Maya. He crouched down so he was at Luis's eye level. That was very smart of you, Dante said gently, not to talk to strangers. Did you see which way he went? Luis studied Dante's face. Something about the calm, steady voice seemed to reassure him. He went to the parking garage, got in a white car. Thank you for telling us. You did the right thing. Dante reached into his pocket and pulled out a $20 bill. For being so helpful. Luis's eyes went wide. I can't take that. Sure you can. And if you see that man again, you come tell Miss Maya right away. Okay? Luis nodded seriously and pocketed the money. Okay, Mr. Dante. Just Dante. After Luis left, Maya closed the door and leaned against it. This is really happening, isn't it? I'm afraid so. Dante's expression was grim. Someone's been watching you, learning your routine, your building. But why? I'm nobody. I clean offices and take care of my grandmother. I don't have any enemies. Nico and Dante exchanged a look. Some kind of silent communication passed between them. Maya, Dante said carefully, this might not be about you directly. It might be about me, about our history. What do you mean? My family has enemies. People who would use anyone connected to me to send a message. If someone found out about our past. The words hit Maya like a physical blow. You think this is your fault? I think it's possible. Maya sank onto the couch. Ruth reached over and squeezed her hand. So what do we do? Ruth asked. For tonight, I'd like to post some security outside your building, Dante said. Discreet. You won't even notice they're there. No, Maya said immediately. I won't have armed men lurking around here. This is a family building. There are kids. Maya, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. I won't put my neighbors in danger because of me. Dante looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Maya's expression stopped him. All right, he said finally. What would you be comfortable with? Maya blinked. She'd been ready for a fight. The old Dante would have argued until he got his way. I don't know. Give me a minute to think. Ruth spoke up. What about rides? To and from work? That bus stop gets mighty lonely at night. Maya started to shake her head, but Ruth held up a hand. Baby girl, pride's a fine thing, but it won't keep you safe. Dante leaned forward. I can arrange transportation for all the night shift workers. Company cars. It wouldn't single you out. Maya considered this. It would help her co-workers too. And it wouldn't feel like charity if everyone benefited. Okay, she said slowly, but just rides. Nothing else without my permission. Understood. Nico's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. Boss, we should go. The building sweep is done. What building sweep? Maya asked. Valenti Tower, Dante explained. We found evidence someone's been testing our security. I wanted to make sure it was safe before you came back to work. Maya's heart sank. Am I going to lose my job? No, absolutely not. But we might need to make some adjustments to keep you safe while you're there. Ruth stood up and smoothed her dress. Mr. Valenti, can I speak with you privately for a moment? Dante looked surprised but nodded. Of course. Ruth led him into the kitchen. Maya could hear them talking in low voices but couldn't make out the words. Nico pretended to study his phone, giving her privacy. After a few minutes, Dante and Ruth returned. Ruth looked satisfied. Dante looked slightly overwhelmed. We'll accept the rides, Ruth announced. And Maya will call you if anything else happens. Won't you, baby girl? Maya looked between them. What did you say to him? Just had a grandmother-to-grandson talk. Nothing you need to worry about. Dante cleared his throat. We should let you get some rest. It's been a long day. As they headed toward the door, Maya caught Dante's arm. What did she say to you? He smiled for the first time since he'd arrived, a real smile that reminded her of the boy who used to bring her wildflowers. She told me I'd better take good care of you this time, or she'd come after me with her rolling pin. Despite everything, Maya laughed. She would too. I don't doubt it. Your grandmother's a force of nature. At the door, Dante hesitated. Maya, I know this is overwhelming, and I know you have every reason not to trust me. But I meant what I said. I won't let anything happen to you. Why? The question slipped out before she could stop it. After all these years, why do you care? Dante was quiet for a long moment. When he looked at her, his dark eyes were full of old pain and something that might have been regret. Because 15 years ago, I walked away from the best thing in my life. I told myself it was to protect you, but really, I was just scared. He paused. I'm not scared anymore. After they left, Maya helped Ruth clean up the tea glasses. They worked in comfortable silence, both lost in their own thoughts. He's different than I expected, Ruth said finally. Different how? Sadder, like he's carrying something heavy. Ruth dried a glass and set it in the cabinet. But he still looks at you the same way he did when you were 16. Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. Grandma, just saying. Some things don't change, no matter how many years pass. That night, Maya lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Through her window, she could see a black car parked across the street. Dante's security, probably, watching over them. Part of her was grateful, but part of her was terrified of what it meant. Her quiet life was officially over. She was back in Dante Valenti's orbit, and that was a dangerous place to be. But when she closed her eyes, all she could see was the way he'd looked at her, like she was still precious to him, like maybe some things really didn't change. Maya woke to the sound of her phone buzzing. Dawn light filtered through her bedroom curtains. She groped for the device, squinting at the screen. Text message from an unknown number. Company car available at 7 p.m. Driver will wait at the main entrance. Transport services. Professional, impersonal. But she knew Dante was behind it. Ruth was already up, making breakfast in the kitchen. The smell of bacon and eggs filled the small apartment. Morning, baby girl. How'd you sleep? Okay. Maya joined her grandmother at the stove. Better than I expected. Good. You needed the rest. Ruth flipped an egg expertly. I've been thinking about yesterday, about that boy of yours. He's not my boy, Grandma. Ruth gave her a look. Honey, I've got eyes. That man's been carrying a torch for you since he was 17 years old. Question is, what are you going to do about it? Maya poured herself coffee. Nothing. This is just about staying safe. Once whoever's messing with us gets bored and moves on, things will go back to normal. Will they? The question hung in the air. Maya didn't have an answer. Her phone rang. Work calling. Hello? Maya? This is Alma from the cleaning crew. Listen, honey, there's been some changes to tonight's schedule. Mr. Peterson wants to meet with all the night staff before our shift starts. Something about new safety protocols. Maya's stomach tightened. What kind of safety protocols? I don't know. But between you and me, there's been some bigwigs in suits walking around all morning, taking pictures, making notes. Has everyone nervous? I'll be there early, Maya promised. After she hung up, Ruth gave her a worried look. More trouble? I don't know. Maybe just precautions. But as Maya got ready for work, she couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to get a lot more complicated. The employee meeting was held in the tower's small conference room. Maya had never been in this part of the building before. Everything was polished wood and leather chairs. It smelled like expensive cologne and power. Mr. Peterson, the facility manager, stood at the head of the table. He was a thin, nervous man who always seemed to be sweating. Today, he looked especially uncomfortable. "Thank you all for coming early," he began. "As you know, building security is our top priority. Due to some recent concerns, we're implementing new safety measures for all night shift employees." Maya glanced around the table. There were 8 of them total, all women, all working class, all trying to make ends meet with jobs that paid just above minimum wage. First, we're providing transportation for anyone who needs it. Company cars will be available at the start and end of each shift. This is optional, but strongly recommended. Alma raised her hand. "Is there some kind of threat we should know about?" Mr. Peterson shifted uncomfortably. "Just standard precautions. We want to make sure everyone gets home safely. Second," he continued, "we're upgrading our ID badge system. Everyone will get a new badge with tracking capabilities. This is for safety purposes only." Maya's skin crawled. Tracking capabilities. Like they were criminals or packages to be monitored. "What if we don't want to be tracked?" asked Rosa, a grandmother who cleaned the executive floors. "The badges are mandatory for all employees. Company policy." Maya started to object, but something made her hold back, a feeling that she was being watched. She glanced toward the back of the room and saw a familiar figure leaning against the wall, Dante. He was dressed like the other executives, dark suit, expensive tie, but his eyes were focused entirely on her. When their gazes met, he nodded slightly, some kind of signal. "Trust me," his expression seemed to say. Mr. Peterson finished explaining the new policies and handed out the updated badges. Maya clipped hers to her uniform shirt, feeling the weight of the small device. As the meeting broke up, Dante approached her. "Miss Ellis, could I speak with you privately?" The other workers shot her curious glances as they filed out. Maya could almost hear them wondering why the CEO wanted to talk to a janitor. When they were alone, Dante's professional mask slipped. "How are you holding up?" he asked quietly. Confused. "What's all this about tracking badges and company cars?" "Protection. But protection that doesn't look like protection." Dante moved closer, lowering his voice. "If someone's targeting you specifically, we can't make it obvious we're watching. The new measures cover all night workers, so you won't stand out." Maya had to admit it made sense, but she still felt like a mouse in a maze, being moved around by forces she didn't understand. "Have you found out who's behind the threats?" Dante's jaw tightened. "We're working on it. But Maya, there's something else. Something I need to tell you." Before he could continue, Alma poked her head back into the room. "Sorry to interrupt. Maya, honey, we should get started. Mr. Peterson wants the executive floors done first tonight." Maya looked at Dante. "We'll talk later?" He nodded. "Be careful, and remember, if anything feels wrong, anything at all, you call me immediately." As Maya gathered her supplies, she couldn't shake the feeling that Dante had been about to tell her something important, something that would change everything. But for now, she had floors to clean and bills to pay. Whatever secrets Dante was carrying would have to wait. The executive floors felt different that night. Maya couldn't put her finger on why. The offices looked the same. The carpets were just as plush. The windows offered the same stunning view of the city. But something was off. Maybe it was the way her new badge seemed to weigh 10 pounds on her chest, or the knowledge that somewhere in the building, people were watching her every move on their computer screens. Maya worked methodically, trying to lose herself in the familiar routine. Vacuum, dust, empty trash, polish surfaces until they gleamed. But her mind kept wandering to Dante, to the way he'd looked at her in the conference room, the way he'd said her name like it still meant something to him, and to the conversation they'd almost had. What had he been about to tell her? Maya was dusting the CEO's outer office when she heard voices from the hallway. Low, urgent, getting closer. She quickly moved to the supply closet, pulling the door almost closed. Through the crack, she could see into the hallway. Two men in expensive suits walked past. She recognized one as Nico Rinaldi. The other was a stranger, older, silver hair, cold eyes. The message was clear enough, the stranger was saying. Your boss needs to remember his place. Mr. Valenti doesn't respond well to threats, Nico replied calmly. Then maybe he needs a reminder of what happens to people who cross the Rossi family. Maya's blood went cold. The Rossi family. She'd heard that name whispered in her neighborhood. Never anything good. The stranger continued. That pretty little janitor of his makes a nice target. So accessible, so vulnerable. You stay away from her. Or what? Your golden boy will start a war over some cleaning lady. Maya pressed her hand to her mouth to keep from making a sound. They were talking about her, about using her to get to Dante. He might, Nico said quietly. And if he does, you'll lose. You know it. I know it. The question is whether you're smart enough to walk away. The voices faded as the men moved down the hall. Maya waited several minutes before emerging from the closet. Her hands were shaking as she pulled out her phone. She started to call Dante, then hesitated. What would she say? That she'd overheard a conversation? That people were planning to hurt her because of him? Before she could decide, her phone buzzed. Text message. Everything okay? Your badge shows you stopped moving. D. Maya looked up at the ceiling, searching for the cameras she now knew were there. Somewhere in this building, Dante was watching her, keeping track of her movements, ready to swoop in if she needed help. It should have felt invasive, controlling. Instead, it felt like safety. She typed back, fine, just taking a short break. Okay, almost done for the night? Maya checked the time. 2 more hours until her shift ended. 2 more hours of wondering if every shadow held a threat. Still working. See you later. She finished the executive floors and moved down to the lower levels. The building felt like a ghost ship. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Her footsteps echoed in empty hallways. Maya was cleaning the 10th floor when she heard it. A sound that didn't belong. Footsteps that weren't hers. She stopped moving and listened. The sound stopped too. Maya's heart started racing. She gripped her mop handle tighter and continued working, but every nerve in her body was on high alert. There it was again. Soft, deliberate, following her. Maya abandoned her cart and walked quickly toward the stairwell. If someone was following her, she wanted to be near an exit. The footsteps quickened too. Maya broke into a run. She hit the stairwell door at full speed and took the steps 2 at a time. Behind her, she could hear the door slam open. Miss Alice, wait. The voice was unfamiliar, male, authoritative. Maya kept running. She burst through the exit on the ground floor and ran toward the lobby. The security desk was there. Help was there. But the lobby was empty. Even the overnight guard was gone. Maya spun around, looking for somewhere to hide. The footsteps were getting closer, echoing in the stairwell. Her phone. She needed to call Dante. But before she could dial, the stairwell door opened. A man in a security uniform stepped out. Young, clean-cut, badge that said, Johnson. Miss Ellis, I'm sorry I scared you. I'm new to the night shift. I was just trying to introduce myself. Maya stared at him. Something about his smile didn't reach his eyes. I don't think we've met, she said carefully. I just started this week. Listen, I noticed you left your cart upstairs. I can help you finish up if you want. No, thank you. I need to make a phone call. Maya backed toward the main entrance, keeping the security desk between her and the man who claimed to be Johnson. Is everything all right? His voice was still friendly, but his eyes had gone hard. Fine, just tired. Maya pulled out her phone with shaking fingers. Before she could dial, the elevator chimed. The doors opened, and Dante stepped out. He took one look at Maya's face, and his expression went deadly. Is there a problem here? He asked the security guard. No, sir, Mr. Valenti. Just checking on Miss Ellis. She seemed upset. Dante moved to stand beside Maya. I'll take it from here. The fake security guard hesitated. For a moment, Maya thought he might argue. Then he nodded and walked away, disappearing into the maze of hallways. Are you hurt? Dante asked. No, but that man isn't who he says he is. I've never seen him before. Dante's phone was already out. Nico, we have a problem. Someone's in the building posing as security. Find him. He hung up and turned to Maya. We're leaving, now. But I'm not done with my shift. You're done. Come on. Dante guided her toward the parking garage. His hand on her lower back was warm and steady, protective, without being possessive. This is my fault, he said as they walked. I should have seen this coming. What do you mean? Someone's escalating, testing our defenses, using you to get my attention. They reached a sleek black sedan. Dante opened the passenger door for her. Where are we going? Maya asked. Somewhere safe. I'll explain everything once we're away from here. Maya hesitated. Getting in that car meant crossing a line. Once she was in Dante's world, really in it, there might be no going back. But the alternative was going home to Ruth, to her quiet apartment where people could slip threatening photos under the door, where strange men could ask 7-year-old boys about her schedule. Maya got in the car. As Dante pulled out of the garage, Maya caught a glimpse of the fake security guard in the side mirror. He was standing at a window, watching them leave. And he was smiling. 20 minutes later, Maya found herself in the elevator of the most expensive building in the city. Dante lived in the penthouse. Of course he did. This is temporary, he said as they rode up. Just until we figure out who's behind the threats. And Ruth? What about my grandmother? Nico's bringing her here, with her permission, of course. Nonna Rosa, my housekeeper, is preparing rooms for both of you. Maya's head was spinning. You can't just kidnap my grandmother. We're not kidnapping anyone. Nico will explain the situation and offer her a choice. But Maya, after what happened tonight, I can't take any chances. The elevator stopped at the top floor. The doors opened to reveal a hallway with marble floors and crystal chandeliers. Everything screamed money and power. Dante led her to double doors at the end of the hall. He pressed his thumb to a scanner, and the locks disengaged with a soft click. Welcome to my home, he said quietly. Maya stepped inside and gasped. The penthouse was beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city. Modern furniture in warm, rich colors. Original artwork on the walls. But it was also clearly the home of someone who valued security above all else. Cameras in every corner, reinforced windows, doors that looked like they could withstand a bomb blast. I know it's not what you're used to, Dante said, but it's safe. That's what matters right now. A small, elderly woman appeared from what looked like the kitchen. She had silver hair, kind eyes, and hands that spoke of a lifetime of hard work. You must be Maya, she said with a slight Italian accent. I'm Rosa. Welcome to our home. Our home. The words sent an unexpected warmth through Maya's chest. Thank you for having me. I'm sorry for the trouble. Rosa waved a dismissive hand. No trouble. Family helps family. Family. Maya wasn't sure what to make of that. Your grandmother should be here soon, Rosa continued. I've prepared the blue guest room for her. It has a nice view of the garden. She's really coming? Dante nodded. Nico can be very persuasive when he needs to be, and your grandmother is smart enough to know when she's outmatched. As if summoned by his words, the elevator chimed. A few minutes later, Ruth appeared in the living room, followed by Nico carrying 2 small suitcases. Grandma! Maya rushed to hug her. Are you okay? I'm fine, baby girl. That nice man explained everything. Ruth looked around the penthouse with sharp, assessing eyes. Quite a place you've got here, Mr. Valenti. Please call me Dante, and it's your place too, for as long as you need it. Ruth studied him for a long moment, then nodded. I appreciate the hospitality, though I hope we won't be imposing for long. As long as you need, Dante repeated. No strings attached. Rosa appeared with a tea service. Mrs. Ellis, perhaps you'd like some refreshments. It's been a long evening. As Ruth was settled into a comfortable chair with hot tea and homemade cookies, Dante pulled Maya aside. We need to talk, he said quietly, about what's happening, about why someone's targeting you. Maya looked at her grandmother, safe and warm in the beautiful room, at Rosa, bustling around like a mother hen, at Nico, standing guard by the windows. This was Dante's world, a world where people you cared about could become targets, where safety came at the price of freedom. But it was also a world where no one she loved would be hurt, where she didn't have to face the darkness alone. Okay, she said, let's talk. Dante led her to a quiet corner of the living room. Through the windows, the city sparkled like scattered diamonds. The man who confronted you tonight, Dante began. He's connected to a family we've had disagreements with in the past. The Rossi family. I heard Nico mention that name earlier. Dante raised an eyebrow but didn't ask how she'd overheard. Marco Rossi has been trying to move into territory that's traditionally been ours, not the legitimate business the other side. When those efforts failed, he started looking for other ways to pressure me, and he found out about me. It looks that way. Maya, I need you to understand, this isn't about you. It's about me. About using you to get to me. Maya absorbed this information. So, I'm bait. Not if I can help it. The fierce protectiveness in his voice sent a shiver through her. This was the side of Dante the rest of the world saw. The side that made grown men cross the street to avoid him. But when he looked at her, his eyes softened. I won't let him hurt you, Dante said. I promise you that. But for how long? Am I supposed to hide here forever? No. We'll find another way. But for now, this is the safest place for you and Ruth. Maya looked around the penthouse again. It was beautiful, comfortable, but it was also a cage, however gilded. What if I don't want to be safe? She asked. What if I want my life back? Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then we'll find a way to give it to you. But Maya, please, just give me a little time. Let me handle this. From across the room, Ruth's voice carried over. She was telling Rosa stories about her herb garden. The two women were laughing like old friends. Maybe a few days in a cage wouldn't be so bad, especially if it meant keeping Ruth safe. Okay, Maya said finally. But I have conditions. Dante straightened. Name them. First, no surveillance inside the apartment. I want privacy. Agreed. Second, Ruth's routines stay the same as much as possible. Her medications, her schedule, her independence. Of course. Third, I want to know what's happening. No more secrets. No more protection from the truth. Dante hesitated. Some things might be hard to hear. I'm tougher than I look. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. I remember. As if to emphasize the point, a quiet knock came at the door. Nico answered it and spoke briefly with someone in the hallway. When he returned, his expression was grim. Boss, we need to talk. Dante glanced at Maya. What is it? Luis Alvarez, the boy from Maya's building. He's downstairs. Says a man came back asking questions. Offered him money for information about Miss Ellis. Maya's heart stopped. Is he okay? He's fine. Smart kid. He came here instead of talking to the stranger. But what? Dante asked. The man left a message. For Maya. Nico handed over a folded piece of paper. Maya opened it with trembling fingers. Inside, in the same block letters as before, nice penthouse. See you soon. Maya sank into a chair. Ruth was immediately at her side, one weathered hand on her shoulder. What does it say, baby girl? Maya showed her the note. Ruth's face went pale. Dante was already moving. Nico, double security. Check every entrance, every camera, and bring Luis up here. I want to make sure he's safe. As the penthouse erupted into controlled chaos, Maya realized something that made her stomach clench with fear. Running hadn't solved anything. They'd found her anyway, which meant the only way this ended was if someone made it end, and in Dante Valenti's world, that usually meant someone got hurt. The question was, who? Luis sat at the marble dining table, swinging his legs and eating Rosa's homemade cookies. He looked so small in the elegant chair, but his dark eyes were alert and serious. Too serious for a 7-year-old boy. Maya sat beside him, her hand gentle on his shoulder. You did the right thing coming here, Luis. You were very brave. The man said he'd give me $50 if I told him about your schedule, Luis said quietly. But Mama always says not to take money from strangers. Dante pulled up a chair so he was at Luis's eye level. Your Mama's right, and you're a smart boy for listening to her. Are you Miss Maya's boyfriend? Luis asked with the directness that only children possessed. Maya felt heat flood her cheeks. Luis, we're old friends, Dante said smoothly. And friends take care of each other. Luis nodded like this made perfect sense. He took another bite of cookie and looked around the penthouse with wide eyes. This place is really fancy. Do you have any video games? Dante smiled. The expression transformed his face, making him look younger. More like the boy Maya remembered. I might have a few. Would you like to see? As Dante led Luis to what looked like an entertainment room, Maya watched them go. There was something about the way Dante interacted with the child. Patient, kind, like he genuinely cared. Ruth settled beside Maya on the couch. That's a good man right there. You don't know what he's involved in, Grandma. I know what I see. And what I see is a man who's trying to protect you and everyone you care about. Ruth patted Maya's hand. Sometimes, that's enough. Rosa appeared with fresh tea and a worried expression. The security team is checking all the entrances again. Mr. Nico thinks someone might have been watching the building. Maya's stomach tightened. Even here, in this fortress of glass and steel, they weren't completely safe. How long can we stay here? Maya asked. This isn't our life. Luis has school. I have work. You have your garden and your friends. As long as you need, came Dante's voice from behind her. He'd returned from settling Luis with some handheld gaming device. But you're right. This isn't a permanent solution. Nico appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. Boss, we need to talk. Dante glanced at Maya. Whatever you have to say, you can say it in front of her. No more secrets. Nico hesitated, then nodded. We found the source of the leak. Marco Rossi has someone inside the building, someone with access to employee records. Maya's heart sank. Someone I work with? We're not sure yet, but it explains how they got your schedule, your personal information. They've been planning this for weeks. Planning what, exactly? Ruth asked. Dante and Nico exchanged a look. We think they're going to try to grab Maya. Use her as leverage. The words hit Maya like ice water. Kidnap me. It's a possibility we have to consider, Dante said carefully. Marco's getting desperate. His other attempts to pressure me have failed. Maya stood up abruptly, pacing to the windows. The city stretched out below, millions of lights twinkling in the darkness. Somewhere out there, people were planning to hurt her, to use her as a weapon against the man she was starting to care about again. This is insane, she said. I'm not part of your world. I clean offices. I take care of my grandmother. I don't want anything to do with family wars or territory disputes or whatever this is about. I know, Dante said quietly. And I'm sorry. If I could take it back, but you can't. Maya turned to face him. Can you? This is what happens when you're connected to you. People get hurt. The words came out harsher than she intended. She saw Dante flinch like she'd slapped him. You're right, he said simply. This is my fault. All of it. Ruth cleared her throat. Maybe I'm just a simple old woman, but it seems to me the fault lies with the people making threats, not with the ones trying to protect innocent folks. Rosa nodded emphatically. Mrs. Ruth is right. Mr. Dante, you cannot blame yourself for the evil that others do. Maya looked around the room. At Ruth, solid and steady as always. At Rosa, fierce in her loyalty. At Nico, standing guard like a sentinel. Even at Luis's voice drifting from the other room, laughing at whatever game he was playing. These people were good. They were trying to help, and she was taking her fear out on them. I'm sorry, Maya said. I didn't mean. You have every right to be angry, Dante interrupted. At me. At this situation. You didn't ask for any of this. Neither did you. The words slipped out before Maya could stop them. But they were true. Dante hadn't asked to inherit a criminal empire. He'd been 17 years old, grieving his father, trying to figure out how to survive. Maybe, Dante said. But I made choices. I could have walked away, sold the business, started over somewhere else. Could you have? Maya asked. Really? Dante was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. I tell myself I could have, but there were people depending on me. Employees, families who'd worked for us for generations, and the other side. If I'd just disappeared, there would have been a war. People would have died. Maya heard the weight in his voice, the responsibility that had been crushing him for 15 years. You were just a kid, she said softly. So were you. And I left you anyway. The raw honesty in his voice made Maya's chest ache. She wanted to go to him, to comfort him the way she would have when they were teenagers. But too much had changed. Too much time had passed. Nico's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. We've got movement outside. 3 cars, circling the block. Dante was instantly alert. How many men? Hard to tell, tinted windows. But they're not trying to be subtle. Lock it down. Full security protocol. As Nico started making calls, the penthouse transformed. Steel shutters began sliding down over the windows. Locks engaged with audible clicks. The casual, homey atmosphere disappeared, replaced by something that felt more like a bunker. What's happening? Luis called from the other room. Just a precaution, sweetheart, Rosa called back. Keep playing your game. Maya felt like she was watching her life turn into an action movie, the kind where innocent people got caught in the crossfire and nobody really won in the end. Is this what it's always like? She asked Dante. Living like you're under siege? Not always, but when someone threatens my family. He stopped, realizing what he'd said. Family. Maya felt something warm and terrifying flutter in her chest. I'm not your family, she said, but the words lacked conviction. Dante looked at her with those dark eyes that saw too much. Aren't you? Before Maya could answer, Nico returned. They're gone, but they left something. He handed Dante a small package. No return address, just Maya's name, written in block letters. Don't touch it, Maya said quickly. What if it's not a bomb, Nico said. We scanned it, but you might not want to see what's inside. Dante opened the package carefully. Inside was a photo. Maya recognized it immediately. Her and Ruth, taken through their apartment window. But someone had drawn a red X over Ruth's face. Maya felt like she was going to be sick. They're threatening Ruth now, Dante said, his voice deadly quiet. No, Maya grabbed the photo from his hands. No, you can't threaten her. She's an old woman. She's never hurt anyone in her life. Ruth stood up slowly, moving to Maya's side. She looked at the photo without flinching. Well, Ruth said calmly, I suppose that settles it. Settles what? Maya asked. We're staying here until this is over, and you're going to let Dante handle it however he thinks best. Grandma, baby girl, I've been on this earth for 72 years. I've seen evil before, and I've seen good people fight it. Ruth fixed Dante with a steady look. You do whatever you need to do to keep my granddaughter safe, and don't you worry about this old woman. I'm tougher than I look. Dante nodded. Yes, ma'am. Now, Ruth continued, I think Luis should call his mother. She'll be worried if he doesn't come home. Already handled, Nico said. We contacted her at the hospital, told her Luis is safe with friends. She knows to call if she needs anything. Good. Then I suggest we all try to get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. As Ruth headed toward her room, Maya caught her arm. Are you really okay with all this? Ruth smiled and cupped Maya's face in her weathered hands. Honey, I've been praying for 15 years that someone would love you the way that boy does. I'm not about to complain now, just because it comes with some complications. It's not love, Grandma. It's just, child, I have eyes. He looks at you like you hung the moon. Always has. Ruth kissed Maya's forehead. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Maya couldn't sleep. She lay in the guest bed, staring at the ceiling and listening to the sounds of the penthouse settling around her. Somewhere down the hall, Luis was probably dreaming about video games. Ruth was likely sleeping peacefully, the way she always did when she felt safe. But Maya's mind was racing. She thought about the photo with the red X, about the fake security guard at the tower, about the way Dante had looked when he realized Ruth was being threatened, like he was ready to go to war. Maya slipped out of bed and padded barefoot through the darkened penthouse. She didn't have a destination in mind. She just needed to move, to think. She found Dante in the kitchen, sitting at the breakfast bar with a cup of coffee and a tablet. Security feeds scrolled across the screen. Even at 2 in the morning, he was working, protecting. Can't sleep either? Maya asked softly. He looked up, and she saw the exhaustion in his eyes. I don't sleep much anymore. Old habit. Since when? Dante hesitated. Since Isabella. The name hit Maya like a physical blow. She'd heard rumors over the years, about Dante's young wife, about the tragedy that had changed him. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Dante set down his tablet and turned to face her. You said no more secrets, and this is why I can't lose you again. Maya sat down on the stool beside him, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from his body. Tell me, she said simply. Dante was quiet for so long that Maya thought he'd changed his mind. Then he began to speak, his voice low and careful. I met Isabella 3 years after I left you. She was nothing like you. Quiet, gentle. She never asked questions about the business. Never pushed for answers I couldn't give. Maya felt a stab of something that might have been jealousy, but she pushed it down and listened. We married after a year. She was 22, I was 25, and thought I had everything under control. The legitimate business was growing. The other side was stable. I thought I could keep her separate from all of it. But you couldn't. No. Dante's jaw tightened. There was a disagreement with another family. Territory, money, the usual things. I thought I'd handled it quietly. But they wanted to send a message. Maya's heart was already breaking for him. She could see where this was going. They ambushed her car on the way to her doctor's appointment. She was 6 months pregnant. Dante's voice cracked slightly. The doctors said she might have survived if they'd gotten to her faster, but they made sure that didn't happen. They wanted me to find her. Oh, Dante. Maya's hand moved without her permission, covering his on the table. Our daughter never took a breath. Isabella died 3 hours later, and I... He stopped, swallowing hard. I should have protected them. It was my job to keep them safe. It wasn't your fault. Wasn't it? I brought that world into their lives. I made them targets. Maya squeezed his hand. The same way you made me a target? Dante pulled away from her touch. Yes, exactly like that. Don't you see? This is what happens to people who get close to me. They get hurt. They die. But I'm not dead. Ruth's not dead. We're here, and we're safe, because you're protecting us. For now. But what about tomorrow? Next week? How long before Marco finds a way to get to you? Maya was quiet for a moment, studying Dante's face in the soft kitchen light. She could see the pain etched in every line, the guilt that had been eating at him for years. How long have you been alone? She asked. What? Since Isabella died. How long have you been living like this? Keeping everyone at arm's length so they can't get hurt? It's safer. For who? For them? Or for you? Dante stared at her. What's that supposed to mean? It means maybe you're not protecting people. Maybe you're protecting yourself from caring, from having something to lose again. The words hung in the air between them. Maya half expected Dante to get angry, to shut down the way he had when they were teenagers, and she pushed too hard. Instead, he just looked tired. Maybe, he admitted, but it doesn't change anything. You're still in danger because of me. Then help me not be. Fight for me. Fight for us. Don't just hide me away and hope the bad guys get bored. Maya. No, listen. You said you walked away from the best thing in your life 15 years ago. Don't do it again. Not because you're scared. Not because you think you're protecting me. Dante searched her face. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm tired of being careful. I'm tired of playing it safe. If Marco Rossi wants to use me to get to you, then let's give him what he expects. But on our terms. Absolutely not. I won't use you as bait. Not bait. Bait is passive. Bait just sits there and waits to be taken. Maya stood up, pacing to the window. Beyond the steel shutters, the city was quiet. I'm talking about taking control. About making our own choices instead of just reacting to his. Dante was shaking his head. It's too dangerous. Everything's dangerous now. Staying here is dangerous. Going back to my old life is dangerous. Running away is dangerous. Maya turned to face him. At least if we act, we're choosing our own risks. And if you get hurt? If something happens to you because I let you, then that's my choice. My risk to take. Maya moved closer to him. But Dante, I need you to understand something. I'm not Isabella. The name seemed to hit him like a physical blow. I'm not her, Maya continued. I'm not fragile. I'm not going to sit quietly while other people decide my fate. I've been taking care of myself and Ruth for 10 years. I know how to fight. This isn't the same as fighting poverty or bureaucracy or whatever you're used to, isn't it? It's about protecting the people you love. It's about not letting bullies win. Maya reached out and touched his face, feeling the slight stubble along his jaw. It's about deciding that what we have is worth the risk. Dante closed his eyes and leaned into her touch. Maya, you don't understand what you're asking. Then help me understand. Talk to me. Let me help you figure this out. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Maya could feel Dante's internal struggle, the war between his need to protect and his need to trust. Finally, he opened his eyes. If we do this, if we stop running and start fighting, there's no going back. Once you're really in my world, you can't get out. Not completely. Maybe I don't want out. Maybe I want in. The words surprised Maya even as she said them, but they were true. She was tired of being on the outside of Dante's life, tired of being protected from the truth. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying that 15 years ago, you made a choice for both of us. You decided what was best for me without asking me what I wanted. Maya stepped closer, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. Don't make that mistake again. Dante was so still he might have been carved from stone. And what do you want? You, Maya said simply. I want you, all of you. The good, the bad, the dangerous, the beautiful. I want the boy who used to read me poetry under the stars, and I want the man who's strong enough to keep the people he loves safe. Maya, I want to choose you, Dante, but I need you to let me. For a heartbeat, Maya thought he might say no. That 15 years of guilt and self-protection might be stronger than whatever was still between them. Then Dante's hands cupped her face, and he was kissing her. It was different from the sweet, tentative kisses they'd shared as teenagers. This was desperate, hungry, a man claiming something precious he'd thought he'd lost forever. Maya kissed him back with 15 years of longing, 15 years of wondering what might have been. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "Are you sure?" Dante asked, his forehead resting against hers. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." "Then tomorrow we start planning. Together." "Together," Maya agreed. As they stood in the quiet kitchen, holding each other in the soft light, Maya felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope, not just for safety or survival or getting through another day, but hope for a future, for love, for the life she'd dreamed about when she was 16 and thought anything was possible. Maybe, just maybe, it still was. Maya woke to the smell of bacon and coffee and the sound of Ruth laughing in the kitchen. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then memory flooded back. The penthouse, the threats, Dante, the kiss. Maya touched her lips, remembering the way he'd held her, like she was precious, like she was home. She dressed quickly and made her way to the kitchen, where she found Ruth and Rosa cooking together like old friends. Luis sat at the breakfast bar, working on what looked like homework, while Rosa supervised. "Morning, baby girl," Ruth called. "Sleep well?" Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. "Fine. Where's Mr. Dante's in his office?" Rosa said, not looking up from the pan she was stirring. "He said to tell you he'll be ready to talk whenever you are." "About what?" Ruth asked, giving Maya a knowing look. "Just business stuff," Ruth hummed noncommittally. "Uh-huh." Luis looked up from his notebook. "Miss Maya, do you know how to do multiplication tables? Rosa's been helping me, but I'm still stuck on the sevens." Maya settled beside him, grateful for the distraction. "Let me see." For the next hour, she helped Luis with his math, while Ruth and Rosa cooked and chatted. It felt wonderfully normal, domestic, like they were a real family instead of refugees hiding in a fortress. But the feeling couldn't last. Eventually, Nico appeared with a serious expression and whispered something to Rosa. The older woman nodded and turned to Luis. "Sweetheart, why don't you go play your video game for a while? The grown-ups need to talk." Luis gathered his schoolwork without complaint. Smart kid. He knew when adults had serious business to discuss. After he left, Nico turned to Maya. "Boss wants to see you. And Mrs. Ellis, there's something you should know. Your apartment building is being watched. 3 men, in rotation. They're not being subtle about it." Ruth's face hardened. "Are my neighbors safe?" "For now. They seem to only be interested in anyone connected to Maya. But we've got people watching too. If anything changes, we'll know immediately." Maya felt a familiar surge of anger. Her neighbors were good people, working families, elderly couples who'd lived in the building for decades. They didn't deserve to be caught up in this. "I need to talk to Dante," she said. "He's waiting for you." Maya found Dante in what she supposed was his home office. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. A massive desk that looked like it cost more than she made in a year. Computer monitors showing what looked like security feeds and financial data. But what struck her most was how tired he looked, like he'd been up all night thinking. "Hey," she said softly. He looked up and smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. "Hey yourself, come here." Maya crossed the room and let him pull her into his arms. For a moment, she just breathed him in. Expensive cologne and something that was purely Dante. "Did you sleep at all?" she asked. "A little. I was thinking about what you said last night, about fighting back. And you're right. Running isn't working. Hiding isn't working. Marco's just going to keep escalating until someone gets hurt." Maya pulled back to look at his face. "So, what do? We give him what he wants. A meeting. A chance to make his demands. That sounds like walking into a trap." "It is, but it's a trap we'll be ready for." Dante moved to his desk and pulled out what looked like building blueprints. "There's going to be a staff appreciation event at the tower tomorrow night. Public. Lots of witnesses. Security everywhere. You want to use the party as cover? I want to use the party as bait. Marco's been trying to get to you through stealth and intimidation. If we make it easy for him, he'll take the opportunity. Maya studied the blueprints. And then what? You arrest him? This isn't a movie, Dante. You can't just make him disappear. No, but I can make him understand that threatening you was a mistake, that continuing this war will cost him more than he's willing to lose. How? Dante was quiet for a moment. Leave that to me. But Maya, I need you to understand if we do this, if we face him directly, things might get unpleasant. Violence isn't always avoidable in my world. I know. But if it's the only way to keep Ruth and Louise and everyone else safe, then we do what we have to do. Dante studied her face. You're really okay with this? With what I might have to do? Maya thought about Ruth's face when she'd seen the photo with the red X, about Louis, scared but trying to be brave, about all the innocent people being pulled into someone else's war. I'm okay with stopping the people who threaten children and grandmothers, she said firmly. Whatever it takes. Dante nodded slowly. Then we plan. Together. They spent the next 2 hours going over every detail. The layout of the building, the guest list, security protocols, escape routes. Maya contributed what she knew about the staff areas, the service corridors, the places someone could hide or be hidden. It felt surreal, planning what was essentially a trap for someone who wanted to hurt her, but it also felt empowering. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, she was doing something instead of just reacting. There's one more thing, Dante said as they finished. After tomorrow night, everything changes. Win or lose, you'll be known as someone under my protection. That comes with benefits, but also responsibilities. What kind of responsibilities? The people in my world, the legitimate side, they'll look to you for guidance sometimes. Charity events, community outreach, being a partner in more than just the personal sense. Maya absorbed this. Like a Don's wife, like my partner, in everything. Dante reached for her hands. Maya, I need you to know this isn't just about surviving Marco Rossi. This is about building a life together, a real life. If you're not ready for that, I'm ready. The words came out without hesitation. Maya realized she'd been ready for 15 years. She'd just been waiting for him to be ready too. Then tomorrow night, we end this. And we start over. Together, Maya said. Together. As Dante kissed her, Maya felt the last of her reservations melt away. This was where she belonged, not just in his arms, but in his world. Fighting beside him, building something beautiful from something that had started with fear. Tomorrow would be dangerous. People might get hurt. There were no guarantees about how any of this would end. But for the first time in 15 years, Maya felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The rest was just details. The staff appreciation event was held in Valenti Tower's main conference hall. Maya had never seen this part of the building before. It was elegant and sophisticated, with crystal chandeliers and marble floors that reflected the warm lighting. She wore a simple black dress that Rosa had mysteriously produced from somewhere in the penthouse. Nothing too fancy, but nice enough that she didn't stand out among the other guests. Her hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and she wore minimal makeup. To anyone looking, she was just Maya Ellis, night janitor, attending her first company party. Only a few people knew she was bait. You look beautiful, Dante said as they rode the elevator up to the party. He was dressed in his usual expensive suit, but Maya could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes kept scanning for threats that weren't there. You look nervous, she replied. I am. This is risky, Maya. It's not too late to call it off. Yes, it is. We've come too far to back down now. The elevator opened onto a scene of controlled elegance. Employees from all shifts mingled with management. Servers moved through the crowd, offering champagne and appetizers. A small orchestra played quiet jazz in one corner. It looked like any corporate event, except for the additional security personnel stationed at strategic points around the room. Remember the plan, Dante murmured as they stepped into the crowd. Stay visible. Stay in public areas. If anything feels wrong, I signal Nico and get to the safe room. I know. Maya could see Nico across the room, dressed like any other executive, but positioned where he could watch the main entrance. Other members of Dante's security team were scattered throughout the crowd, blending in with the guests. Mr. Valenti, a cheerful voice interrupted their quiet conversation. Maya turned to see Alma from the cleaning crew, looking elegant in a blue dress. Maya, you look gorgeous, honey. I almost didn't recognize you all dressed up. Thanks, Alma. You look pretty amazing yourself. As they chatted with Alma and some of the other night shift workers, Maya started to relax. These were her people, her friends, and they were genuinely happy to see her. For a few minutes, she could almost forget this was all an elaborate trap. Then she saw him. Marco Rossi stood near the entrance, shaking hands with other guests like he belonged there. He was shorter than Maya had expected, with silver hair and an expensive suit. He looked like any other middle-aged businessman, except for his eyes. Cold, calculating, the eyes of a predator. Maya felt Dante tense beside her. Across the room, Nico's hand moved almost imperceptibly toward his jacket. "Showtime," Dante murmured. Marco made his way through the crowd, stopping to chat with various guests, always moving closer to where Maya and Dante stood, like a shark circling its prey. "Mr. Valenti," Marco said when he finally reached them. His voice was smooth, cultured. "What a lovely event. Thank you for including me." "Mr. Rossi, I wasn't aware you were on the guest list," Marco smiled. "I wasn't, but I took the liberty of inviting myself. I hope you don't mind." "Of course not. This is Maya Ellis." "Maya, Marco Rossi." Maya forced herself to smile and extend her hand. "Nice to meet you." Marco took her hand in both of his, holding it just a little too long. "The pleasure is all mine, my dear. I've heard so much about you." "Have you?" Maya pulled her hand back casually. "All good, I hope." "Oh, very good. In fact, I was hoping we might have a chance to talk privately, about mutual acquaintances." Maya felt ice form in her stomach, but she kept her voice steady. "I'm not sure we have any mutual acquaintances, Mr. Rossi. I think you'd be surprised. Perhaps we could step outside? The balcony has such a lovely view of the city." Maya glanced at Dante. This wasn't part of the plan. Marco was supposed to make his move later, when there were fewer witnesses around. But Dante nodded slightly. "Trust me," his expression seemed to say. "That sounds lovely," Maya said. "Dante, would you like to join us?" "Actually," Marco interrupted smoothly, "I was hoping to speak with Miss Ellis alone. Business matters." "What business could you possibly have with Maya?" Dante's voice had gone dangerously quiet. "Oh, I think she knows." Marco's smile never wavered, but his eyes hardened. "Don't you?" "My dear." Maya felt like prey being stalked by a very patient hunter. But she'd come this far. She wasn't going to back down now. "Lead the way," she said. The balcony was empty except for them. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Maya could see the party continuing inside. Dante stood just inside the doors, close enough to hear, but far enough away to maintain the illusion of privacy. "You have a lovely apartment," Marco said conversationally. "10th floor, corner unit. Nice view of the park." Maya's blood ran cold. "Have you been to my apartment?" "Not personally, but I have associates who appreciate good architecture." Marco leaned against the balcony railing. "I also hear your grandmother makes excellent sweet tea. Rosa is such a lovely name, don't you think?" Maya's hands clenched into fists. "If you touch my grandmother—" "Oh, my dear, I have no interest in harming elderly ladies. That would be terribly ungentlemanly." Marco's smile turned predatory. "But accidents do happen, especially in buildings with such outdated wiring, such narrow stairwells. What do you want?" "Nothing too complicated. I want Mr. Valenti to remember his place in this city's hierarchy. He's been a bit ambitious lately, expanding into territories that don't belong to him." "I don't know anything about territories or business." "Of course you don't. But you know about loyalty, about family, about what happens to people who get caught between warring factions." Marco stepped closer. Maya forced herself not to back away. "Here's what's going to happen," he continued. "You're going to convince your boyfriend to be more cooperative, more willing to negotiate. And in return, I'll make sure nothing unfortunate happens to the people you care about." "And if I can't convince him?" Marco's smile disappeared entirely. "Then we'll have to try a more direct approach, starting with that sweet little boy who likes to play in your building's courtyard. Luis." Maya felt rage flood through her, hot and fierce. "You're threatening a 7-year-old child." "I'm explaining consequences, actions and reactions, cause and effect." Marco straightened his tie. "It's really quite simple. Convince Valenti to back down, and everyone stays safe. Fail to convince him, and people start getting hurt. And you think I have that kind of influence over him? My dear girl, he's ready to go to war over you." "Of course you have influence." Marco glanced through the windows at Dante. "The question is whether you'll use it wisely." Maya followed his gaze. Dante stood perfectly still, but she could see the tension in every line of his body. He was waiting for her signal, ready to act if she needed him. But this was her moment, her choice to make. "You know what I think?" Maya said, turning back to Marco. "Please, enlighten me." "I think you're scared. I think Dante's been winning whatever little war you've started, and now you're desperate enough to threaten children and grandmothers." Marco's eyes flashed. "Careful, my dear. I think you picked the wrong person to threaten, and I think you're about to find out just how wrong you were." Before Marco could respond, Maya stepped back toward the balcony doors. As she did, she brushed against a potted plant, knocking it over. The crash was small but sharp, and it was the signal she and Dante had agreed on. Instantly, Dante was moving. The glass doors slid open, and he stepped onto the balcony with the fluid grace of a predator. "Gentlemen," he said quietly, "I think this conversation is over." Marco straightened, trying to regain his composure. "We were just getting to know each other, and now you're done." Dante moved to Maya's side, his presence solid and reassuring. "Maya, why don't you go back inside? I'm sure our guests are wondering where you are." "Actually," Marco said quickly, "I think Miss Ellis should stay. She needs to understand the full scope of what we're discussing." "She understands perfectly." Dante's voice carried the kind of quiet menace that made smart people take a step back. "The question is whether you understand." "Understand what?" "That threatening my family was the last mistake you'll ever make." The word family hit Maya like a physical blow. Not girlfriend, not woman under his protection. Family. "Your family?" Marco laughed, but there was no humor in it. "This cleaning lady? Really, Valenti? I thought you had better taste." Maya saw Dante's hands clench, saw the muscle in his jaw tick. Marco had just crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. "You have 10 seconds to apologize," Dante said quietly. "To her. And then you're going to walk out of this building and never come back." "Or what? You'll start a war over some nobody." Dante moved. Maya barely saw it happen. 1 second Marco was talking. The next, he was pressed against the balcony railing with Dante's hand at his throat. "She's not nobody," Dante said, his voice deadly calm. "She's everything. And if you ever threaten her again, if you ever even look at her wrong, I will end you. Do you understand me?" Marco's face was turning red. He nodded as much as he could with Dante's hand around his throat. Dante released him and stepped back. "Get out." Marco straightened his suit, trying to regain some dignity, but his hands were shaking now. "This isn't over," he said. "Yes," Dante replied. "It is." As Marco hurried back into the party, Maya realized she was trembling. Not from fear, but from adrenaline, from the rush of standing up to someone who'd tried to intimidate her. "You okay?" Dante asked, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "I'm perfect," Maya said, and for the first time in weeks, she meant it. From inside the party came the sound of raised voices. Through the windows, Maya could see Marco storming toward the exit. Nico was following at a discreet distance, along with several other security personnel. "Is it over?" Maya asked. "The immediate threat?" "Yes. Marco won't try anything else. He knows he's outmatched. And the long term?" Dante pulled her close, holding her against his chest. "The long term is up to us. We can go back to hiding, keeping our distance, trying to stay safe. Or we build something worth protecting, something worth fighting for." Maya looked out over the city lights. Somewhere out there, Ruth was probably knitting and watching her evening shows. Luis was doing his homework. Normal people living normal lives. But this was her life now. Standing on a balcony in a tower, in the arms of a man who'd just threatened someone's life to protect her. It wasn't normal. It wasn't safe. But it was real. And it was theirs. "Let's build something," Maya said. Dante's smile was bright enough to outshine the city lights. "Together?" "Together." As they stood holding each other, Maya realized that sometimes the most dangerous choice was also the most honest one. Sometimes love meant walking into the fire instead of running away from it. She was ready to burn. The morning after the staff party, Maya woke up in Dante's arms. Sometime during the night, she'd made her way to his room, and he'd held her while she slept. No words, no pressure. Just the comfort of being close to someone who would protect her with his life. Now, in the soft morning light filtering through the steel shutters, Maya studied his face. Even in sleep, there was tension around his eyes, the weight of responsibility that never fully left him. But there was peace, too, something she hadn't seen in the photos of him from recent years. Like maybe, for the first time in a long time, he wasn't carrying the world alone. Morning, he said quietly, his eyes still closed. How did you know I was awake? Your breathing changed. Dante opened his eyes and smiled. I'm a light sleeper. Occupational hazard. Maya traced her finger along his jaw, feeling the morning stubble. Do you think it's really over? With Marco? The immediate threat? Yes. He knows he overplayed his hand last night. But Maya? Dante's expression grew serious. Men like Marco don't just disappear. He'll lick his wounds and find another way to cause trouble. Maybe not for us, but for someone. So what do? We live our lives, we build something beautiful, and we stay ready. Dante caught her hand and pressed it to his chest, over his heart. But we don't let fear dictate our choices anymore. A knock at the bedroom door interrupted them. Mr. Dante, Rosa's voice called softly. I'm sorry to disturb you, but there's someone here to see Miss Maya. Maya and Dante exchanged glances. Who? Dante called back. A young man. Says his name is Luis. He seems upset. Maya was out of bed immediately, grabbing Dante's shirt from the floor and pulling it on. Something's wrong. They found Luis in the living room, still in his pajamas and a thin jacket. His mother Carmen stood beside him, looking exhausted and worried. Ruth was already there, offering them coffee and comfort. Luis, sweetheart, what's wrong? Maya asked, kneeling in front of the boy. Miss Maya, they came back, Luis said, his voice shaking. The men. They were asking about you again, but this time they had pictures. Carmen spoke up, her English heavily accented but clear. They showed him photos of you, Miss Ellis. Asked if he knew where you were staying. When I found out, I brought him here immediately. Dante was already on his phone, speaking rapidly to Nico. After he hung up, he turned to Carmen. Mrs. Alvarez, I'm Dante Valenti. Thank you for bringing Luis here. You did the right thing. Are we in danger? Carmen asked directly. My son, he's all I have. Not anymore, Dante said firmly. I give you my word. No one will hurt you or Luis. But they know where we live. They know Luis saw you with Miss Maya. Maya felt sick. Another innocent family caught in the crossfire because of her connection to Dante. We'll move you, Dante said. Both of you, temporarily, until we're sure the threat is over. I can't afford. No cost to you. None of this is your fault. Carmen studied Dante's face, reading the sincerity there. You promise my boy will be safe? I promise. Nico arrived within the hour with a team of movers. Carmen and Luis's belongings were packed and transported to a secure apartment building owned by one of Dante's legitimate companies. Better neighborhood, better schools for Luis, and security that would make sure they were never threatened again. As they said goodbye to Luis, Maya hugged him tight. Be good for your mama, okay? And keep working on those multiplication tables. Will I see you again, Miss Maya? Of course you will. We're friends, remember? Friends don't just disappear. Luis nodded seriously. Then he turned to Dante. Mr. Dante, are you going to marry Miss Maya? Maya felt heat flood her cheeks. Luis, maybe, Dante said seriously. Would that be okay with you? Luis considered this. Yeah, you're nice. And you fix broken things. After they left, Maya found herself pacing the living room. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Innocent people getting hurt because of us. But they're not hurt, Ruth pointed out from her chair by the window. They're safe. They're in a better place than they were before. Sometimes good things come out of bad situations. Your grandmother's right, Dante said. And Maya, this is what I do. I take care of people. It's not a burden. It's a privilege. I know. But nothing. Luis and his mother are under my protection now. That means they're part of my family. Our family. Dante pulled Maya into his arms. This is how it works in my world. We take care of our own. Our family. The word sent warmth through Maya's chest. She was starting to understand what that meant in Dante's world. It wasn't just blood. It was choice, loyalty, love. Nico appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. Boss, we need to talk. Maya started to leave, but Dante caught her hand. Stay. No more secrets, remember? Nico nodded. We intercepted communications between Marco's people and someone in Chicago. Looks like he's calling in favors, asking for muscle. How many men? 3, maybe 4. Professionals, not local talent. Maya's stomach dropped. He's not backing down. Apparently not. But this actually works in our favor. How? Maya asked. Because now we know he's desperate. And desperate men make mistakes. Dante turned to Nico. What's the timeline? They'll be here tonight. Word is, they're planning something for tomorrow. Tomorrow's Sunday, Maya said. What happens on Sunday? Ruth looked up from her knitting. Church. I usually go to morning service at St. Mary's. Not tomorrow, Dante said immediately. It's not safe. Now hold on, Ruth said firmly. I've been going to St. Mary's for 30 years. I'm not letting some bully keep me from my faith. Grandma, no, baby girl. Some things are more important than being safe, and my relationship with God is one of them. Maya looked between Ruth and Dante, seeing the collision of two immovable forces, Ruth's stubborn faith and Dante's protective instincts. What if we made it safe? Dante asked slowly. Extra security, controlled environment. You want to use church as another trap? Maya asked. I want to give Marco exactly what he's looking for. A chance to grab you in a public place with innocent bystanders around. Dante's expression was hard. And then I want to make sure he regrets it for the rest of his very short life. Ruth set down her knitting. Are you planning to kill him, son? The direct question hung in the air. Maya held her breath. I'm planning to end the threat, Dante said carefully, whatever that takes. Ruth studied his face for a long moment. I've lived through wars, Dante. I know sometimes violence is the only answer to violence, but I also know it changes the people who use it. I know, but the alternative is letting him hurt the people I love. I can't do that. No, Ruth said quietly. I suppose you can't. Then we'd better make sure you do it right. St. Mary's was a small Catholic church in Maya's old neighborhood. Stone walls, stained glass windows, wooden pews that had been polished by decades of use. It smelled like candle wax and old hymnals. Maya sat between Ruth and Dante in a pew near the back, trying to focus on Father Martinez's sermon about forgiveness. But her attention kept drifting to the exits, to the other worshippers, to the shadows in the corners where Dante's security team waited. She wore a simple blue dress and had her hair down loose around her shoulders. To anyone watching, she looked like any other young woman attending Sunday service with her family. But under her dress, she wore a wire, and in her purse, a panic button that would bring every one of Dante's men running. Are you okay? Dante murmured, his hand covering hers on the hymnal. Just nervous. It's going to be fine. We're ready for anything. Maya nodded, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to go very wrong. The service ended with a hymn and Father Martinez's blessing. As people filed out of the pews, Maya noticed a few faces she didn't recognize, men who didn't quite fit in with the usual congregation. Stay close, Dante said quietly. They made their way slowly toward the exit, Ruth stopping to chat with friends she'd known for years. Maya tried to act normal, but every nerve in her body was on high alert. They were almost to the door when it happened. Maya Ellis? Maya turned to see a young woman in a nurse's uniform approaching. She looked familiar, but Maya couldn't place her. Yes? I'm sorry to bother you, but there's been an accident. Your friend Luis, he's been hurt. He's asking for you. Maya's blood turned to ice. What? How? He's supposed to be safe. Please, you need to come quickly. He's at Mercy General. I have a car waiting. Maya started to follow, but Dante's hand caught her arm. Wait, how do you know Luis? How do you know Maya? The woman's eyes flickered nervously. I work with his mother. At the hospital. She gave me Maya's description. It was a reasonable explanation, but something in the woman's demeanor felt wrong. What's your name? Dante asked. Sarah. Sarah Martinez. Please, there isn't time. Show me your hospital ID, Maya said suddenly. The woman hesitated. I left it in the car. We really need to go. That's when Maya saw him. Marco Rossi, standing near a black van parked across the street. He was trying to look casual, but his eyes were fixed on Maya. It's a trap, she whispered to Dante. But before he could respond, the fake nurse grabbed Maya's arm. You're coming with me. Maya pulled back. Let go of me. The woman's grip tightened, and suddenly Maya felt a sharp prick in her arm. A needle. Whatever was in it worked fast. The world started to blur around the edges. Maya! Dante's voice sounded far away. She tried to call out, but her vocal cords wouldn't work. Her legs gave out, and the fake nurse caught her under the arms. Help! Someone help her! The woman called out, playing the part of a concerned bystander. I think she's having some kind of medical episode. People gathered around, blocking Dante's view. In the confusion, the woman started dragging Maya toward the van. But she hadn't counted on Ruth. Maya's grandmother stepped directly in front of them, her purse swinging. The heavy bag connected with the fake nurse's head with a solid thunk. "That's my granddaughter, you witch. Let her go," the woman stumbled, loosening her grip on Maya. That's all the opening Dante needed. He moved through the crowd like a force of nature, reaching Maya just as the van doors opened. Two men jumped out, reaching for her. Dante hit the first one with a punch that Maya heard even through her drugged haze. The man dropped like a stone. The second man pulled a gun, but Nico appeared from nowhere, disarming him with brutal efficiency. Across the street, Marco was shouting orders and backing toward another car. He'd realized his plan had fallen apart. "Get him!" Dante snarled, lifting Maya in his arms. Nico and two other men sprinted toward Marco's car, but they were too late. The engine roared to life, and the car peeled away from the curb. "Boss, do we pursue?" "No. Get Maya to the hospital. Now." Maya tried to tell them she was okay, that whatever drug they'd used was wearing off, but her mouth still wouldn't form words properly. Instead, she just held on to Dante as he carried her to their car, Ruth close beside them. She was safe. They were all safe. And Marco Rossi had just made the biggest mistake of his life. Maya woke up in a hospital bed, feeling like she'd been hit by a truck. Her mouth was dry, her head was pounding, and there was an IV in her arm, but she was alive. "Hey," Dante said softly from the chair beside her bed. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Hey, yourself. How long was I out?" "About 6 hours. The doctor said it was some kind of sedative, meant to knock you out fast, but not cause permanent damage." "Kidnapping 101, Maya said dryly. Dante's face went dark. "This is my fault. I should have seen it coming. Should have been ready for—" "Stop," Maya reached for his hand. "You did see it coming. That's why we were ready. That's why I'm alive and safe, instead of in some warehouse somewhere. But you were hurt. You were drugged. In a church, for God's sake. And Ruth hit someone with her purse. Did you see that?" Maya couldn't help smiling. I think she enjoyed it. Despite everything, Dante laughed. She did seem pretty pleased with herself. Where is she now? Downstairs in the cafeteria with Rosa, making friends with the nursing staff and probably organizing a charity drive. That sounded like Ruth. Turn any situation into an opportunity to help people. And Marco? Dante's expression went cold. Gone. For now. But not for long. What do you mean? I mean, this was his last chance to do things quietly. Now it gets loud. Maya studied his face, seeing something there that made her stomach clench. "Dante, what are you planning?" "I'm planning to end this. Permanently. By killing him." It wasn't a question. Maya could see the decision in his eyes. "By protecting my family," Dante corrected. "By making sure he never threatens anyone I love again. And if the police, won't be an issue. Marco's got too many enemies. Too many people who want him gone. When he disappears, no one will ask questions." Maya was quiet for a long moment, processing this. In the space of a few hours, she'd been drugged and nearly kidnapped. Her grandmother had been forced to defend herself with a purse. A 7-year-old boy was being used as bait. All because one man couldn't accept that he'd lost. "Do it," she said quietly. Dante blinked. "What?" "Do it. End him. But promise me something. Anything. Promise me it won't change you. That you won't let this make you into someone I don't recognize." Dante leaned forward, taking her face in his hands. "Maya, I've been someone you don't recognize for 15 years. Cold, distant, afraid to let anyone close." He pressed his forehead to hers. "You're not changing me. You're bringing me back. Then come back to me, all the way. When this is over, come home. I promise." Dr. Patel appeared in the doorway, clipboard in hand. "Miss Ellis, how are you feeling?" "Like I want to go home." "Well, your blood work looks good. The sedative is mostly out of your system. I think we can discharge you this evening." "Thank you, doctor." After Dr. Patel left, Dante stood up. "I need to go. Nico's waiting. Be careful. Always am." Maya caught his hand as he turned to leave. "Dante, I love you." It was the first time she'd said the words out loud. They hung in the air between them, precious and fragile and true. "I love you too," he said quietly. "More than my own life. Then protect that life. For me." Dante kissed her gently, tasting like coffee and promises. "I'll be back before you know it." After he left, Maya lay back on the hospital bed and closed her eyes. Somewhere in the city, the man who tried to hurt her and her family was about to learn why no one threatened Dante Valenti's loved ones. She should feel guilty about that. should feel bad about wanting Marco Rossi to pay for what he'd done, but she didn't. Some people chose evil, and sometimes the only way to stop them was with force. Maya just prayed that when the dust settled, the man she loved would still be the man she'd fallen for all those years ago under the summer stars. Maya was discharged from the hospital that evening. Ruth and Rosa fussed over her like mother hens, insisting she rest on the couch with tea and blankets. Luis and his mother came by to check on her, both of them pale and shaken. "Miss Maya, I'm so sorry," Carmen said tearfully. "If I hadn't let him go to the park alone." "This isn't your fault," Maya said firmly. "None of this is your fault, but they used him to hurt you. They tried to, but they failed, and now they'll never get another chance." Luis climbed onto the couch beside Maya, curling up against her side like a small, scared animal. "Are the bad men gone?" Maya thought about where Dante was right now, what he was doing. "They will be soon, sweetheart. Promise?" "I promise." The hours crawled by. Maya tried to read, tried to watch TV, tried to focus on anything other than the fact that Dante was out there somewhere, ending a man's life to protect her. At midnight, her phone rang. Dante's voice was steady but tired. "It's done. Are you okay?" "I'm fine. I'm coming home." "Good. I'll be waiting." Maya hung up and let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. It was over. Really over. Marco Rossi would never threaten another child, never use innocent people as weapons, never hurt anyone she loved. And in the morning, she and Dante could start building the life they dreamed of 15 years ago. Dante arrived home just as dawn was breaking over the city. Maya met him at the door, searching his face for signs of what he'd done, what it had cost him. He looked tired, older somehow, but his eyes were clear, steady, still the eyes of the man she loved. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Like I can finally breathe," he said honestly. "He won't hurt anyone again." "Good." They held each other in the quiet hallway, two people who'd been to hell and back and somehow found their way to each other. "What happens now?" Maya asked. "Now we live. We build something beautiful. We take care of the people we love." "And the business? Both sides of it?" "I'm making changes. The legitimate side will grow, the other side." Dante was quiet for a moment. "I'm getting out, gradually, carefully, but I'm done with that world." "Because of me? Because of us? Because I want a future that doesn't involve looking over my shoulder every day." Dante cupped her face in his hands. "Maya, I want to marry you. I want to have children with you. I want to grow old with you. I can't do any of that if I'm still living like a target." Tears pricked Maya's eyes. "Are you proposing to me?" "Not yet. When I propose, it'll be somewhere beautiful, somewhere that means something to us." Dante smiled. "But I'm giving you fair warning. It's coming. I'll be ready." They made their way to the kitchen, where Rosa was already preparing breakfast. Ruth sat at the table with her morning coffee and the newspaper. "How'd it go, son?" Ruth asked without looking up from the sports section. "It went well, Mrs. Ellis." "Good. That man needed stopping." Ruth turned a page. "Now, what are your intentions toward my granddaughter?" Maya nearly choked on her coffee. "Grandma, it's a fair question. Man's been mooning over you for 15 years. About time he made an honest woman of you." Dante laughed. "My intentions are completely honorable, Mrs. Ellis. I plan to love her, protect her, and make her happy for the rest of my life." "That'll do," Ruth said approvingly. "Maya, you could do worse." As they sat around the table eating Rosa's pancakes and talking about normal things, the weather, Luis's progress in school, Ruth's plans for a new herb garden, Maya felt something she'd never experienced before. Complete happiness. Not just contentment or satisfaction, but pure joy. The kind that came from being exactly where you belonged, with exactly the right people. It had taken 15 years, a kidnapping attempt, and a small war to get here, but it had been worth every minute. 3 months later, the community garden was Maya's idea. A patch of unused land in her old neighborhood transformed into something beautiful. Raised beds full of vegetables and flowers, a small greenhouse where children could learn about growing things, benches where neighbors could sit and talk. It was officially called the Ellis Valenti Community Gardens, funded by the Valenti Foundation and managed by a board of local residents. But everyone just called it Maya's Garden. Today was the grand opening. Families from the neighborhood mingled with city officials and members of the press. Children ran between the garden beds while their parents sampled Rosa's cookies and Ruth's sweet tea. Maya stood near the entrance, wearing a simple yellow sundress and watching Luis show off the tomato plants he'd helped plant. He was taller than he'd been 3 months ago, more confident. The scared little boy was still there sometimes, but now he was balanced by curiosity and joy. "Penny for your thoughts," Dante said, appearing beside her with 2 glasses of lemonade. "Just thinking about how much can change in such a short time. Good changes? The best changes." Dante handed her a glass and gestured toward the garden. "You did this. You saw a vacant lot and turned it into something that brings people together. We did this. I had the idea, but you made it possible." "Partnership," Dante said, smiling. "I like the sound of that." Across the garden, Mayor Rodriguez was preparing to give a speech. Camera crews were setting up. Local news was covering the story. But Maya's attention was caught by something else. Near the memorial plaque they'd installed for "Loved Ones We Keep," a tribute to everyone who'd been lost but not forgotten, someone had placed a small bouquet of wildflowers. Maya walked over to investigate and found a note tucked among the flowers. Her name was written on the outside in familiar handwriting. Inside, in Dante's careful script, "Maya, 15 years ago, I gave you wildflowers under an oak tree and promised to love you forever. I broke that promise when I walked away, but my love never died. It just waited. Today, in this garden you've created, surrounded by the life we're building together, I want to make that promise again. Will you marry me? Forever yours, D." Maya's hands were shaking as she turned around. Dante was walking toward her, and in his hands was a small velvet box. "You said somewhere beautiful," he said, dropping to one knee right there in the dirt between the tomato plants and the sunflowers. "Somewhere that means something to us." The whole garden went quiet. Someone gasped. Camera flashes started going off, but Maya only saw Dante. Her past, her present, her future. "This is where it all started," he continued. "You, caring about people. Me, finally understanding what really matters. This garden, these people, this life we're building, it's all because you taught me that love isn't just about protecting people. It's about helping them grow." He opened the box. Inside was a ring unlike anything Maya had ever seen. Not a traditional diamond solitaire, but something more complex, more meaningful, a center stone surrounded by smaller ones, creating a pattern that looked like "a flower," Maya breathed. "It's a flower. Wildflowers, like the ones I gave you when we were kids." Dante's voice was rough with emotion. "Maya Ellis, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life loving you and this beautiful world you create, wherever you go?" Maya looked around the garden. At Ruth, tears streaming down her face. At Rosa, clapping her hands together. At Luis, grinning like he'd just been given the best present ever. At all the neighbors and friends and family chosen and blood who'd become part of their story. "Yes," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Yes, yes, yes." The garden erupted in cheers as Dante slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her right there in the dirt, surrounded by growing things and people they loved and a future that stretched out bright and endless before them. Later, after the speeches were made and the cameras had gone home, Maya and Dante sat on one of the benches with Ruth between them. Luis was chasing fireflies with some of the other children. Rosa was packing up the leftover food with military efficiency. "Are you happy, baby girl?" Ruth asked. Maya looked at the ring on her finger, at Dante's hand holding hers, at the garden they'd built together and the life they were planning. "I'm perfect, Grandma. We're perfect." "Good," Ruth said, settling back against the bench. "Took you long enough to figure that out." As the sun set over the garden, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Maya realized that sometimes the most beautiful love stories weren't about perfect people finding each other at the perfect time. Sometimes they were about broken people choosing to heal together, about love that was strong enough to survive separation and fear and the kind of darkness that tried to destroy everything good in the world. Sometimes love was about planting a garden in the place where your heart had been broken and watching something beautiful grow. Maya leaned against Dante's shoulder and watched Luis catch his first firefly, the tiny light glowing between his cupped hands like captured magic. This was their beginning. Not the scared teenagers under the oak tree 15 years ago, but the people they'd become. Scarred but strong, careful but not afraid, ready to build something that would last forever. 6 months after the garden opened, Maya Ellis became Maya Valenti in a small ceremony at Street Mary's. with Father Martinez officiating and half the neighborhood in attendance. Luis was the ring-bearer. Ruth cried through the entire service. Rosa provided the flowers. Dante kept his promise to get out of the darker side of the family business, transitioning everything to legitimate enterprises over the course of 2 years. The Valenti Foundation became one of the city's largest supporters of community development and child welfare programs. Maya never went back to cleaning offices. Instead, she became the foundation's director of community outreach, helping other neighborhoods create their own gardens and gathering places. 3 years later, they welcomed their first child, a daughter they named Isabella Ruth Valenti, honoring both the love that was lost and the love that endured. Luis grew up to become a landscape architect, designing green spaces all over the city. He still calls Maya and Dante Miss Maya and Mr. Dante, and still comes for Sunday dinner every week. Ruth lived to be 91, long enough to spoil her great-grandchildren and teach them all how to grow the perfect tomato. And sometimes, on summer evenings, Maya and Dante would walk through their garden hand in hand, remembering the scared kids they used to be and marveling at the beautiful life they'd built from love, courage, and the belief that some things are worth fighting for. Some debts never die, but some loves never die either. And love, it turns out, is always stronger.